My friends, we're going to start with an item from the Real Truth, Believe It or Not Museum. And it's becoming an overcrowded museum. Hi, my name is Howard Real. The show is called Real Truth, item from the Daily Caller. A growing number of millennials show support for communism and socialism. A survey from the victims of communism found. The survey conducted by the victims of communism and polled by the research and data firm YouGov found that 70% of millennials are likely to vote socialist, and that 1 in 3 millennials perceives communism as, quote, favorable, unquote. My friends, this is hard to believe. Well, then again, maybe it's not. Millennials aren't, as a general rule, concerned with facts or doing research or getting information before they form opinions. They're a liberal bunch, and like all liberals, they don't think very much. When they try, they don't think very well. They react out of emotion. When they hear socialism or communism, they think, oh, okay, it's being compassionate, it's sharing, it's loving your fellow man. Of course, communism and socialism are not that. Here's an excerpt from a piece in the Chicago Tribune dated 1990, 29 years ago, and I quote, "Countless numbers of homeless people living on the streets, a healthcare system that serves only some of the people, widespread hunger and malnutrition, enormous gaps between rich and poor. America in the Reagan-Bush years? No. The Soviet Union and its allies in the Gorbachev era and before. Americans had always assumed that though people in the Eastern Bloc had no freedom, no democracy, no Cabbage Patch dolls, they at least could count on economic security. They might not be rich, but unlike here, no one was starving to death in the gutters. The Soviet ambassador to the U.S. dramatized the point a couple of years ago by giving a $5,000 donation to homeless activist Mitch Snyder. Well, that gesture, like the entire communist enterprise, was a hollow fraud. The Soviet people and their fellows in Eastern Europe, it's become clear, were even worse off than the fiercest anti-communists imagined. Communism may be vanishing, but before it goes, the full scope of its debacle ought to be known. For years, the evidence has been trickling in that even by the standards of success established by the left, East Bloc socialism has been a disaster. In 1984, Harvard scholar Nicholas Eberstadt exposed the health crisis afflicting the Russian people. Life expectancy, he pointed out, was 6 years lower than in Western Europe. Infant mortality was 3 times higher. Death rates were rising for every age group. Measured by the health of its people, he wrote, the Soviet Union is no longer a developed nation. And things were getting worse, not better. Deteriorating health isn't the whole story. Thanks to the advent of glasnost, the Soviet press is now publicizing a whole range of ills that were supposed to be unique to capitalism. Kathy Young, a writer who grew up in Moscow, reports in the New Republic magazine that, quote, some independent Soviet journalists put the number of transient and homeless people at 700,000. Moscow News claims there are 3 million, unquote. Many of those who have housing, she notes, are living in the equivalent of homeless shelters without even such essential commodities as running water. Those with real apartments, which are typically small, Spartan, and overcrowded, are the lucky ones. Poverty, far from being eradicated, is rampant. As many as 17% of Soviets live below the official poverty line, which probably understates the situation. Poverty in the Soviet Union, says Young, is worse than in the United States because, quote, it is much more likely to result in malnutrition, unquote. My friends, any of you listening to my voice think that millennials knew this before they answered that survey question? I shudder to think, and this has bearing on our educational systems too, certainly on our colleges and universities, I shudder to think how ignorant millennials are. They just plain don't know. They are too busy entertaining themselves with television and electronic games and music and going out to bars with their friends. They're having so much fun, they're as dumb as a bag of rocks. Communism and socialism, they're really the same thing. are a recipe for disaster, poverty, disease, malnutrition, as the article said, ignorance, and most of all, tyranny. When people need the government presses its advantage and takes advantage of people and takes away their freedoms. The best thing that ever happened to the world, economically speaking, has been capitalism. Capitalism is the carrot dangled in front of the face of a horse. It keeps it running, keeps it moving forward. Capitalism is reward and punishment. If you learn and you succeed and you work hard, you will succeed. If you don't do any of those things, if you sit on your couch watching soap operas all day, then you will fail. And socialism and communism are economic systems for people and nations who fail. Well, that's never been America. Hopefully it won't be America. And hopefully there are millennials listening to this show and they're getting the first inkling of what the hell they're saying yes to. And if you don't want socialism, you shouldn't, then you sure as hell don't ever want to vote Democrat, because that's where the Democrat Party is going now. They're embracing socialism, whether they call it that or not. My friends, we are at a very, very dangerous juncture in this country. We better start making some wise and informed decisions. The easiest one is to stay away from things that are terrible for us, like socialism, like communism, like the Democrat Party. As far as I can tell, it's Monday. The show is called Real Truth. My name is Howard Real. I will be here for the next 45 minutes. I recommend you stick around.